Hey guys, so I wanted to make a video in response to all the requests for a video on how to stay relaxed while moving around the drums. And I'm gonna break this video down in two parts. This first part is gonna be is gonna explain a few different steps that you can take to making yourself better at it. And the second part is going to be about applications and some examples so that you can use these steps to the best of your ability and to make them as effective as possible. So hope this is something that you can take away from and hope you enjoy. So the concept behind staying relaxed while moving around the drums is very simple. It's just don't over squeeze when moving around. That's really all there is to it. There's nothing difficult about it. But it is difficult in practice, and I understand your struggles. So I came up with a few different steps that can help you get better at whatever you're trying to play while staying relaxed. And before I get to those steps, I just want to emphasize the importance of learning how to stay relaxed. Staying relaxed helps you approach the rounds as close to the one drum approach as possible. And that's very important because you're always going to produce a better sound on one drum than you do on the rounds. And if it's the other way around, I would highly advise you to go check yourself on one drum because that is where everything originates from. So here we go. So step one is play on one drum, whatever it may be, something simple like a check pattern or 8/8/16. And I would highly advise starting with 8/8/16 because it simplifies everything down to the basic full stroke mechanic and basic motions. And that is basically the base for everything to build on top of. So when you're playing 8/8/16, just make sure you stay relaxed. Make sure you're still producing a nice open full sound without feather tapping or without hitting too hard. Cool. Just making sure that you understand what you're doing. Step two is put it on the rounds. Now here's the important part. Do not make the rounds super difficult. This is to help you build muscle memory and help you build good habits into the basic stuff so that all the hard stuff can build on top of that. If you're taking something like 8/8/16 and you're messing around with the rounds, keep it simple. Make sure there's not a huge variety of motion. Make sure there's not too many big motions, and make sure that there's not too many fast motions. And it can start as something simple like playing on two drums. It could be something as simple as putting isolated notes on different drums. Or moving just across the drums. Anything like that. Just something simple just to isolate one specific theme or one thing that you're trying to get better at. Step three is analysis. So now that you're playing these rounds, make sure that you're doing it over and over again. Now check yourself and ask yourself, am I staying as relaxed as I was on one drum? Am I approaching the rounds the same way? And if you're not, then try to relax even more and start trying to analyze yourself and see what the problem is. Why are you over squeezing or why are you not doing it the same way? So in this case, we're going to talk about like for people that over squeeze. Why are you over squeezing when you're moving around the drums? And one of the problems might be because you're trying to move from the wrist. And in a previous video, we kind of talk about not doing that, but this is going to cause you to use different muscles and it might cause you to build more tension in your strokes. And I feel like that's the biggest, the most consistent problem is that people try to move down here when they move around rather than pivoting from up here in order to maintain the integrity of this. Once you figure that out, then you move on to step four, which is basically just repeating the first three steps while taking the tempo up and finding where your threshold is. And as you take it faster and faster, make sure you always start with the one drum stuff. Make sure you identify that. That's going to be your benchmark. And then do different rounds if you want, and compare it to that benchmark and ask yourself, am I playing as relaxed as possible? Am I playing as relaxed as I was on one drum? And start analyzing yourself. Once it starts becoming uncomfortable, once you start losing control over your beat placement, then stop and figure out how to get over that barrier. Sometimes it's a chops thing, and sometimes it's just a lack of control thing. So that's something you got to kind of mess around with yourself. But again, it's good to start with one drum, doing a check pattern thing, one rep, one drum, one rep around type thing. and just start checking yourself. It's important to make sure that you don't push yourself to the limit. Don't go to the point where you're just kind of tossing your stick in just for the sake of speed, because that's not going to get you anywhere. Stop where it starts to get uncomfortable and start figuring out how to get over that barrier and start making it comfortable. Cool, so I hope this video helps. All these steps can be applied to anything, and we're going to talk more about that in the next video, but it's a good way to start figuring out your tendencies and how to not squeeze as you move around the drums. And I know it can be a big problem for some people, and doing this type of work is going to take some time to build. It's not just something that's going to happen overnight. And sometimes sometimes you have the chops, and doing something like this, nice and slow, and thinking about the right things is basically going to unlock the subconscious things and make them conscious to you, so that you can start manipulating them the way you think that they should be, which is a good thing. You want to be conscious of as many variables as possible. The more ignorant you are with your own technique, the harder it is to get better, because you can't identify the problem. So check out the next video, and we'll talk more about how to apply these steps a little bit better. So check you next time.